I never thought a late-night Walmart run would stick in my memory like a scar. But that's exactly what happened in the summer of 2022. Back then, I was living in Asheville, North Carolina, a mountain town with a strange mix of tourists, retirees, and college kids drifting through. I was 27, working a dull copy editing job from home, living paycheck to paycheck but keeping afloat. Money was tight and my car barely ran, but I had a couple of constants, my best friend Marcus Lee and our late-night drives. Marcus and I had known each other since high school. He was the type who always had a joke ready, always made the room feel lighter even when things were heavy. That summer, Marcus was going through his own rough patch. He'd just broken up with his girlfriend of 3 years, and nights at his apartment felt too empty. So he'd text me, "Walmart run? Midnight therapy." And I'd always say yes. For us, Walmart at night wasn't about shopping. It was about that weird peace you only find in fluorescent-lit aisles when the rest of the city is asleep. We'd walk around, grab energy drinks, laugh at the off-brand cereals, talk about life. It was harmless, or so it seemed. But one night changed everything. The drive. It was a Friday, late July, the kind of humid night where the air feels sticky on your skin. Marcus picked me up in his beat-up Honda Civic around 11:15 p.m. He was blasting some old Kanye track, drumming the steering wheel like it was a drum kit. "Man, I swear this car only starts when it wants to," he said, shaking his head. I laughed. "It's got personality." "Like you, yeah, but at least I don't stall out on left turns." The banter was easy, automatic. That's how it always was with us. We reached the Walmart Supercenter off Tunnel Road around 11:45. The parking lot was half empty, that eerie yellow glow from the lamps stretching shadows across cracked pavement. A couple of trucks sat far off, engines still running, windows tinted. Nothing unusual, but enough to make me take a second look. "You notice how quiet it is?" I asked as Marcus parked. He shrugged. "It's midnight in Asheville. Who the hell wants discount socks at this hour except us?" We both laughed, but something about that silence felt heavier than usual. Inside the store, walking through those automatic sliding doors always felt surreal. The blast of cold air, the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights, the faint smell of disinfectant mixed with floor polish. The greeter that night was an older man, gray hair slicked back, eyes half closed like he hadn't slept in days. He gave us a nod, not a word. Marcus whispered, "Dude looks like he just saw a ghost." I chuckled, but again, it didn't land right. The store was nearly empty. A woman in pajama pants browsing detergent, a stock boy with a cart stacked with cereal boxes. The faint voice of an employee on the intercom announcing a price check. Normal stuff, but the silence in between felt unnatural. We grabbed a cart even though we didn't need one. It gave us something to lean on, made us feel less exposed. "All right," Marcus said. "Pop-Tarts, Gatorade, and wait, you still owe me those frozen burritos." "You owe me," I corrected. He grinned. "Fine, I'll buy 'em. Call it post-breakup reparations." We turned down the frozen aisle, joking under our breath when I noticed him. The first man. He was tall, maybe 6'3", wearing a black windbreaker despite the heat. Standing at the end of the aisle, staring at the glass doors like he couldn't decide on ice cream. But he wasn't looking at the food. His head was tilted just slightly, eyes locked on us. I whispered, "Don't look now, but you see that guy?" Marcus glanced, too quick. "Yeah, creepy, but whatever." We moved on, but I couldn't shake it. Something about his stillness, the way he wasn't pretending to shop, just waiting. A few aisles later, we saw another man. Same build, same jacket. This one near the pharmacy section, pacing slowly, phone to his ear. He wasn't shopping either. My stomach knotted. "That's two," I murmured. Marcus finally looked uneasy. "All right, that's weird." The first sound. We were debating whether to just head to checkout when it happened. A loud clang echoing through the store like metal hitting tile. Marcus froze. "What the hell was that?" Before I could answer, the sound came again, sharper this time. Then a scream. A woman's voice, high-pitched, near the front of the store. Marcus grabbed my arm. "We need to move." Now we pushed the cart aside and ducked behind a display of bottled water. My heart was slamming so hard I could feel it in my throat. Then came the unmistakable pop, pop, pop of gunfire. Chaos. The man in the windbreaker appeared again, this time running down the main aisle. In his hand, a handgun gleamed under the harsh lights. His face twisted in rage, or maybe fear, I couldn't tell. An employee near the registers raised his hands. "Please, don't! Just take the—" 3 more shots. Screams erupted. Someone knocked over a shelf of soup cans, the crash echoing like thunder. Marcus whispered, "We're dead if we stay here." We crawled low, our palms scraping the linoleum, moving toward the garden center at the back. Around us, chaos unfolded, shoppers crying, an old man clutching his chest, a mother shielding her kid behind a stack of toys. Another gunshot. The intercom cut mid-sentence. Silence followed except for sobs and the ringing in my ears. The garden doors blessedly opened. Cold night air hit me like a slap. "Run!" Marcus yelled, and we did. Outside, the parking lot looked normal. Too normal. Cars driving by. A couple of teens skateboarding on the far side, like the world had no idea what was happening inside. We crouched behind a pallet of mulch bags, breathing like animals caught in a trap. My whole body shook. Within minutes, though it felt like hours, police sirens pierced the night. Blue and red lights washed over the lot. Officers swarmed inside, weapons raised. One by one, shoppers stumbled out, some crying, some blank-eyed. A man with blood down his shirt limped toward the ambulances. A young woman screamed when she couldn't find her boyfriend. Marcus and I stood against a squad car, answering questions we could barely process. Who shot first? How many were there? Did we recognize them? We had no answers. Aftermath. It turned out to be gang-related. One of the men had tracked someone inside. The victim? Just a guy buying groceries, wrong place, wrong time. Marcus didn't say a word for hours. He just stared at the police tape like it was burning into his memory. The next day, I called my boss and told him I needed time. I didn't say why. I didn't tell my parents either. I couldn't bear the retelling. Marcus stopped going to Walmart completely. He said even the hum of fluorescent lights made him hear that pop again. Me? I changed in ways I didn't expect. Late-night store runs stopped. Crowds made me twitchy. And whenever someone reached into a jacket too fast, my body froze before my brain could reason. I know it's irrational. But when violence tears into a place you thought was safe, when it shatters the illusion of ordinary, you don't see the world the same again. Now every aisle feels longer. Every stranger seems louder. Every door feels thinner. So when someone asks, "Want to make a Walmart run tonight?" my answer is always the same. Let's wait till morning. I never thought the most ordinary place in town, the Walmart off Route 46, would become the center of a memory I'd spend the rest of my life trying to forget. If you'd told me a year ago that a simple late-night run for groceries could turn into a nightmare, I'd have laughed it off. I wasn't a paranoid type. I wasn't one of those people who jumped at shadows or clutched pepper spray every time I walked through a parking lot. But that was before October of last year, when I was 31, living in a small rental house on the edge of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, and trying to hold the pieces of my life together. Backstory: a town too quiet. Willow Creek isn't the kind of town people dream of moving to. It's a middle-sized place where the factories shut down decades ago, and the only things that kept the economy limping forward were a nearby correctional facility and the Walmart supercenter on Route 46. Everyone shopped there. Everyone. You could live without the movie theater, you could live without the library, but you couldn't live without Walmart. I'd moved back after a rough breakup. My ex, Alana, and I had been together for 6 years in Pittsburgh. She got promoted, I didn't. I was working freelance design gigs that barely paid rent, and slowly she stopped seeing me as an equal. By the time she ended things, she didn't even cry, just packed a bag and said she'd been done for a while. So I retreated home, licking my wounds, renting a small place near my mom, but not too close. I told myself it was temporary, just until I figured things out. My closest friend left in Willow Creek was Eric Dempsey, who'd never left town. Eric was 2 years older than me, worked at an auto body shop, and had that rare kind of loyalty you only notice when life kicks you in the ribs. He texted me most weeks. Need a beer? Need to vent? Sometimes I said yes, most times I said no. But one Tuesday in October, he caught me on the right night. The night begins. "Yo, Mark," Eric said, leaning against his beat-up Ford truck outside my house. "Let's make a Walmart run. I need brake fluid, and you need to stop sulking in this cave." I grinned despite myself. "Walmart? At 10 p.m.? He shrugged. "Best time to go. No lines, just zombies in pajama pants." I grabbed my hoodie, wallet, and followed him. The air was sharp that night, the kind of early fall chill that makes you zip your hoodie all the way up. The drive only took 12 minutes, but the closer we got, the emptier the road felt. When we pulled into the Walmart lot, I noticed how vast it looked. More asphalt than cars. A sea of yellow lights buzzing overhead, throwing weird shadows across abandoned carts. "You sure they're open?" I asked. "Dude, this is Willow Creek. Walmart never closes," Eric said. "If it did, half the town would starve by morning." We parked near the garden center because Eric said he hated walking from the middle of the lot. That's when I noticed the black van. It was parked 3 rows over, engine off, but there were people inside. Shapes. I saw one figure in the driver's seat, head tilted down, maybe on a phone. The passenger sat too still. Too quiet. "Creepy," I muttered. Eric followed my gaze. "Probably just people taking a smoke break. Don't get all CSI on me," I let it go, but something about the stillness of that van gnawed at me. Inside the store, Walmart at night feels different than Walmart during the day. The fluorescent lights seem harsher. The aisles echo more. You notice every squeak of the shopping cart wheels. Eric headed for the automotive section. I drifted toward snacks. We'd meet at checkout. Simple plan. But almost immediately I felt watched. In the cereal aisle, a man stood at the far end, tall, lean, wearing a dark hoodie. He wasn't holding a basket or cart. He wasn't shopping, just standing. I tried to act normal, studying cereal boxes like I was trying to solve world hunger, but my eyes flicked back. He was still there. When I turned the corner into chips, I saw him again. Different end of the aisle this time. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from Eric, greater than, "Yo. You see the dude in the hoodie?" I typed back fast. Greater than, "Yeah." He's following, no reply. I swallowed hard and walked toward the drinks aisle. My sneakers squeaked too loudly. That's when I saw another man. Different hoodie, same blank posture. He was by the refrigerators, pretending to read labels. I felt my chest tighten. Reuniting with Eric, I nearly ran into Eric near the checkout lanes. His face was pale. "Dude," he whispered, "there's 3 of them." "Not just one," I nodded quickly. "What the hell is this? A gang thing?" He glanced behind me, eyes narrowing. "Don't look now, but one of them just moved closer." I resisted turning. My hands were clammy. "We should tell someone. An employee." I never thought the most ordinary place in town, the Walmart off Route 46, would become the center of a memory I'd spend the rest of my life trying to forget. If you'd told me a year ago that a simple late-night run for groceries could turn into a nightmare, I'd have laughed it off. I wasn't a paranoid type. I wasn't one of those people who jumped at shadows or clutched pepper spray every time I walked through a parking lot. But that was before October of last year, when I was 31, living in a small rental house on the edge of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, and trying to hold the pieces of my life together. Backstory: a town too quiet. Willow Creek isn't the kind of town people dream of moving to. It's a middle-sized place where the factories shut down decades ago, and the only things that kept the economy limping forward were a nearby correctional facility and the Walmart supercenter on Route 46. Everyone shopped there. Everyone. You could live without the movie theater, you could live without the library, but you couldn't live without Walmart. I'd moved back after a rough breakup. My ex, Alana, and I had been together for 6 years in Pittsburgh. She got promoted, I didn't. I was working freelance design gigs that barely paid rent, and slowly she stopped seeing me as an equal. By the time she ended things, she didn't even cry, just packed a bag and said she'd been done for a while. So I retreated home, licking my wounds, renting a small place near my mom but not too close. I told myself it was temporary, just until I figured things out. My closest friend left in Willow Creek was Eric Dempsey, who'd never left town. Eric was 2 years older than me, worked at an auto body shop, and had that rare kind of loyalty you only notice when life kicks you in the ribs. He texted me most weeks. Need a beer? Need to vent? Sometimes I said yes, most times I said no. But one Tuesday in October, he caught me on the right night. The night begins. "Yo, Mark," Eric said, leaning against his beat-up Ford truck outside my house. "Let's make a Walmart run. I need brake fluid, and you need to stop sulking in this cave." I grinned despite myself. "Walmart? At 10 p.m.? He shrugged. "Best time to go. No lines, just zombies in pajama pants." I grabbed my hoodie, wallet, and followed him. The air was sharp that night, the kind of early fall chill that makes you zip your hoodie all the way up. The drive only took 12 minutes, but the closer we got, the emptier the road felt. When we pulled into the Walmart lot, I noticed how vast it looked. More asphalt than cars. A sea of yellow lights buzzing overhead, throwing weird shadows across abandoned carts. "You sure they're open?" I asked. "Dude, this is Willow Creek. Walmart never closes," Eric said. "If it did, half the town would starve by morning." We parked near the garden center because Eric said he hated walking from the middle of the lot. That's when I noticed the black van. It was parked 3 rows over, engine off, but there were people inside. Shapes. I saw one figure in the driver's seat, head tilted down, maybe on a phone. The passenger sat too still. Too quiet. "Creepy," I muttered. Eric followed my gaze. "Probably just people taking a smoke break. Don't get all CSI on me." I let it go, but something about the stillness of that van gnawed at me. Inside the store, Walmart at night feels different than Walmart during the day. The fluorescent lights seem harsher. The aisles echo more. You notice every squeak of the shopping cart wheels. Eric headed for the automotive section. I drifted toward snacks. We'd meet at checkout. Simple plan. But almost immediately I felt watched. In the cereal aisle, a man stood at the far end. Tall, lean, wearing a dark hoodie. He wasn't holding a basket or cart. He wasn't shopping. Just standing. I tried to act normal, studying cereal boxes like I was trying to solve world hunger, but my eyes flicked back. He was still there. When I turned the corner into chips, I saw him again. Different end of the aisle this time. That's when my phone buzzed. A text from Eric, greater than, "Yo. You see the dude in the hoodie?" I typed back fast. Greater than, "Yeah. He's following." No reply. I swallowed hard and walked toward the drinks aisle. My sneakers squeaked too loudly. That's when I saw another man. Different hoodie, same blank posture. He was by the refrigerators, pretending to read labels. I felt my chest tighten. Reuniting with Eric, I nearly ran into Eric near the checkout lanes. His face was pale. "Dude," he whispered, "there's 3 of them." "Not just one," I nodded quickly. "What the hell is this? A gang thing?" He glanced behind me, eyes narrowing. "Don't look now," but one of them just moved closer. I resisted turning. My hands were clammy. "We should tell someone. An employee." I never liked shopping late at night, but life doesn't always wait for convenience. I remember that Tuesday in October with a clarity that won't leave me, no matter how many times I try to file it away in the dusty cabinet of my mind. They say trauma sharpens certain memories, and I guess that's true. I can still smell the faint staleness of my old hoodie, still hear the buzz of the fluorescent lights inside the store, and still feel the knot in my stomach that grew heavier with each step I took down those long, sterile aisles. But before I get ahead of myself, let me tell you how it all began. Because nightmares don't just show up on your doorstep. They sneak in through the ordinary. They slip inside the small gaps of routine until suddenly the familiar looks like a stranger. Backstory: life in Willow Heights. In 2021, I was 30 years old and back living in Willow Heights, a mid-sized town in central Ohio that people usually just pass through on their way to somewhere better. The kind of place with a handful of bars, 3 gas stations, 1 failing movie theater, and a Walmart supercenter on Eastwood Drive that served as the unofficial town square. Everyone ended up there eventually. Moms in yoga pants, mechanics in oil-stained coveralls, teenagers pretending to be bored while wandering the electronics aisle. I'd left Willow Heights after high school, swearing I'd never look back. But life doesn't follow oaths. I studied graphic design in Cincinnati, lived with my girlfriend of 6 years, and thought I was building something permanent. Then COVID hit. Work dried up, and eventually so did the relationship. She left first, packed her side of the closet, left the key on the counter, and walked out without much more than a "take care of yourself." With no money and nowhere else to go, I dragged myself back to my hometown, renting a cheap 1-bedroom near the edge of town. My mom was still around, living 2 blocks away, but I tried not to lean on her too much. I kept telling myself I'd figure it out, that this was just temporary. My closest friend who never left town was Dylan Matthews. Dylan worked as a mechanic, lived above his uncle's garage, and had a way of finding humor in even the worst situations. If my life was falling apart, Dylan was the one who cracked a joke about the duct tape holding it together. He wasn't flashy, wasn't ambitious, but he was loyal. The kind of loyal you don't appreciate until everything else collapses. The night of the run, that Tuesday night, I'd been sitting at my kitchen table staring at a pile of unopened bills when Dylan texted, "Dylan, beer run? Or at least snack run? My fridge looks like the Sahara me." "Man, it's almost 10. Dylan, so? Walmart's open. Don't make me eat ketchup sandwiches again." I sighed, grabbed my keys, and met him outside 15 minutes later. He was leaning against his dented red Chevy truck, grinning like he'd just convinced me to skip class. "Come on, Mark," he said. "It'll be quick. Snacks, maybe some brake fluid, and we're out." "Brake fluid?" I raised an eyebrow. "Don't ask." Long story involving my cousin's ATV. We laughed, and for a moment it felt like high school again, like nothing had changed. We pulled into Walmart's parking lot around 10:20 p.m. The place looked emptier than I'd ever seen it. Rows of yellow lights buzzing above stretches of asphalt. Only a dozen or so cars scattered near the front. That's when I noticed it. A dark gray van parked crookedly near the garden center. Engine off, windows tinted too dark. Something about it felt wrong. "You see that?" I asked. Dylan glanced over. "Yeah. Probably kids vaping or something, but the hair on my neck stood up. Even before we walked inside, I felt uneasy. Inside the store, Walmart after dark doesn't feel like the same place as during the day. The light is too bright, the aisles too empty, the hum of the refrigeration units too loud. The place echoes in a way that makes you feel small. We split up, Dylan heading toward automotive, me drifting toward snacks. My sneakers squeaked against the linoleum as I walked past half-stocked displays. An older woman in plaid pajama pants pushed a cart slowly, humming to herself. A night shift employee stacked cans in the soup aisle with the weary rhythm of someone counting minutes until dawn. At first, everything seemed normal, until I noticed him. A man in a black hoodie stood at the far end of the cereal aisle. No cart, no basket. Just standing, hands in pockets, staring too long. I looked away quickly, pretending to study boxes of Cheerios, but when I glanced back, he hadn't moved. I turned into the chips aisle. He appeared at the other end. My phone buzzed. A text from Dylan. "Yo, you see the dude in the hoodie?" Creepy F, I typed fast. "Yeah. Following me too." I didn't wait for his reply. My pulse picked up. The warning signs. I moved toward the drinks aisle, telling myself I was overreacting. But then I saw another man. Same style. Dark hoodie, no cart, blank expression. He stood by the refrigerators, pretending to read labels but not really looking at anything. Something in my gut twisted. I found Dylan near checkout. His face was pale. "Dude," he whispered, "there's 3 of them." "Not 1, 3?" He nodded, tilting his head subtly. "Other ones near pharmacy." My stomach sank. "What do we do?" I asked. "Tell someone," he said. We spotted a young employee restocking shelves near self-checkout. She looked maybe 19. I walked up, voice low. "Hey, sorry, but I think we're being followed." Her eyes widened. "By who?" Dylan tilted his chin toward the soda aisle. "Don't look. Just those guys." She froze, then lifted her walkie-talkie. Todd, can you come to the front?" Her voice cracked. The intercom, a supervisor named Todd, appeared. Thinning hair, blue vest, eyes already tired. He tried to play it cool, but when he looked toward the soda aisle, his jaw clenched. "Stay by the register," he muttered. "I'll walk you out." But before he moved, the store intercom crackled, and a flat, unfamiliar male voice filled the air. "Attention, shoppers." Nobody leaves. The entire store froze. The older woman in pajama pants dropped a box of tissues. The night shift employee stopped mid-stack. My stomach went ice cold. "That's not staff," Dylan whispered. "No," I breathed. Then came the first loud bang from the pharmacy section. Not a gunshot, more like metal slamming on tile. Shoppers screamed. A cart tipped. The men in hoodies weren't pretending anymore. They started moving, spreading out like they knew the layout. "Go!" Todd hissed. "Back exit, now!" The chase we ran, past toys, past bedding, past displays of Halloween candy. My chest heaved, sneakers squeaking too loud. Behind us, voices barked, male, firm. "Block the doors!" one shouted. My blood turned to ice. We skidded around a corner toward the garden center. The automatic doors loomed ahead, glowing under harsh light. Freedom. But when they slid open, my heart sank. The gray van was parked right outside. Its side door slid open with a metallic groan. 3 more men stepped out, this time wearing ski masks. They didn't hesitate. They rushed in. The fight one grabbed the young employee by the arm. She screamed, kicking. "Let her go!" Dylan roared. He swung the bottle of brake fluid he still carried. It smashed against the man's shoulder. The masked figure stumbled, cursing. "Run!" Dylan shouted. I bolted through a side emergency exit. The alarm blared, splitting the night. Cold air hit my lungs. Dylan and the girl followed. But the parking lot wasn't empty. Another car idled near the far row, a beat-up sedan. Its headlights flicked on, aimed right at us. "They're surrounding the place," Dylan panted. "Why? Why us?" I gasped. No answer. The sirens then, slicing through the night, sirens. Blue and red lights painted the asphalt. Police cruisers barreled in from Eastwood Drive, tires screeching. The masked men froze. Then chaos exploded. The van's engine roared. The sedan peeled out. Shadows scattered like roaches under floodlight. Officers shouted commands, weapons drawn. The men bolted, some diving into vehicles, others vanishing into the dark edges of the lot. I collapsed behind a cart corral, gasping. Dylan crouched beside me, chest heaving. The young employee sobbed, clutching her scraped arm, aftermath. The police swarmed the scene. Shoppers huddled near the entrance, trembling. Employees cried, hugging each other. I gave my statement with shaking hands. Dylan kept pacing, muttering. They knew what they were doing. They knew the officers told us the vans were stolen, plates switched, no fingerprints. They vanished before they could be tracked. It wasn't random, one detective said. These men had been spotted before in other Walmarts across Ohio. They stalked. They tested routines, but no one knew what they wanted. That night, no one died. No one was kidnapped. But it was too close. Far too close. What changed weeks passed. Dylan stopped going to Walmart altogether. He ordered everything online, said the aisles felt haunted. Me? I still go sometimes, but never at night. Never alone. Because once you've heard a stranger hijack the intercom in a Walmart and say nobody leaves, you can't unhear it. Now every time I walk under those buzzing lights, I check the lot for vans. I scan for hoodies. I grip my cart too tight. And when someone asks, Want to make a Walmart run after dark? I always say the same thing. No thanks. Let's wait till morning because sometimes danger doesn't knock. Sometimes it just slips through the sliding doors of the places we trust most. They say every city holds a different version of you, and Birmingham was one of mine, just not one I'd ever planned on revisiting. It had been years since I'd last driven through the city limits, let alone stayed a night. But life has a way of folding the past back onto the present when you least expect it. In the fall of 2021, I accepted a short-term guest lecturer gig at Jefferson State Community College, filling in for a colleague who had taken medical leave. The paycheck was modest, but enough to cover some student loan interest and give me a change of scenery from Lexington, Kentucky. When I texted Kyle Brighton to let him know I'd be in town, he responded with that same goofy energy he always had back in college. "You're crashing at my place. No debate. I'll even clean the futon." Kyle was the kind of friend who never drifted no matter how far you moved. He stayed in Birmingham after graduation, launched a podcast with his cousin, and had a way of making the mundane seem oddly cinematic. We hadn't seen each other in years, but within 5 minutes of pulling into his driveway, it felt like we were 19 again. That week blurred into a mixture of lectures, late-night food runs, and watching old Tarantino movies with greasy takeout boxes between us. Most nights we found ourselves at the 24-hour Walmart down on Monantlair Road. Not for anything important, just snacks, cheap socks, dumb stuff. It was like reclaiming that feeling of being young and invincible, wandering aisles while the rest of the city slept. We laughed at the time. It felt harmless, like the kind of week you forget by next month. But one Tuesday night made sure we never would. It was just after 11 p.m. when we pulled into the nearly empty parking lot. The air had that crisp October bite, enough to remind you the season was changing, even if the South never really got winter. Kyle was ranting about someone stealing his laundry detergent brand the night before while I was half listening, sipping on cold coffee from a gas station stop. The store was mostly quiet inside. A security guard stood casually near the entrance, nodding without much interest. A couple of night shift employees restocked shelves with the kind of slow rhythm you only develop when the clock barely moves past midnight. The hum of the fluorescent lights above gave the place that familiar ghost town feel. Quiet, sterile, and just detached enough to make you feel like you were walking through someone else's memory. Kyle split off toward the food section, muttering about strawberry Pop-Tarts. I followed loosely, hands in my hoodie pockets, eyes casually scanning. That's when I noticed the first man, tall, lean, wearing a black puffy jacket despite the mild weather. He stood by the self-checkout, tapping his fingers against a pack of gum, but his eyes weren't on his purchase. They were locked on something, or someone. Then I saw the second man across the store, pacing slowly near the pharmacy. Same build, same kind of jacket, same anxious energy. They weren't together, but they weren't apart either. Something was off, and I could feel it in the way they moved. Too rehearsed, too timed. I leaned toward Kyle when he circled back with snacks in hand. "You see those guys?" He gave a passing glance. "Yeah, meth energy. Let's bounce." But we didn't, not yet. We joked about it as we turned down the frozen aisle. Kyle made a crack about undercover agents shopping for Hot Pockets. And I laughed, but it was hollow. The tension wasn't going away. That's when the first sound hit, a sharp echoing crack that sliced through the air like someone had just slammed a metal pipe against the floor. Then another. And that's when the screaming started. People often say time slows down in moments of crisis, but it doesn't. It just changes shape. The seconds felt thick, like I was wading through syrup, trying to push through the weight of confusion and instinct. Kyle grabbed my arm and yanked me down behind a pallet of bottled water near the back of the store. A display of stacked Dasani cases became our only barrier between us and the chaos. Another crack, not a pipe, a gunshot. I peeked through the gaps between bottles just in time to see the taller guy, the one by self-checkout, rushing down the aisle with a handgun clutched in his right hand. His jacket flared open, revealing tattoos, a long scar across his collarbone, and an expression that was beyond rage. It was desperation, the kind that made you realize this wasn't about robbery. This was personal. A Walmart employee, barely old enough to rent a car, stood frozen near the front registers, hands outstretched. "Don't shoot, man, please, it's not worth it." 3 more shots followed. I couldn't see where they landed, but the screams got louder. Someone knocked over a display of canned soup, and the sound echoed like a drumline. "Travis!" Kyle hissed. "We got to move!" We army crawled toward the garden section. My palms burned against the linoleum. I saw a woman clutching her daughter in the toy aisle, shielding her with her own body. Another employee was sobbing behind the customer service desk. The intercom mid-announcement cut out. The world went silent except for the distant ringing in my ears and the sound of our sneakers squeaking along the floor. We reached the back just as another gunshot fired. Somehow the garden center doors worked. They opened with a sigh, and the cold night air slapped me in the face. We sprinted. No time to think, just ran. Outside, the world still looked normal. That was the strange part. Streetlights flickered. Cars passed on Montclair like nothing was happening. We crouched behind a stack of mulch bags near the loading zone, panting like animals. My heart was slamming against my chest like it was trying to escape. It took maybe 5 minutes for the police to arrive, maybe less. Blue and red lights lit up the night like a strobe. Officers rushed in through every entrance, weapons drawn. Shoppers stumbled out in groups, some crying, some just blank-eyed. A man in a blood-soaked hoodie limped toward the ambulance bay. A young woman screamed when she couldn't find her boyfriend. We stood by a squad car, giving our statements in slow, halting words. It didn't feel real. The detective nodded, asked questions we could barely answer. Who shot first? Did we see his face? Did we know the victim? Turned out it was a gang thing, some kind of personal beef. The victim just a guy picking up groceries. Wrong place, wrong time. No record, no connections, just bad luck. Kyle stared blankly at the police tape for what felt like hours. Neither of us said much. When the crowd thinned, we walked back to his car in silence. I flew back to Kentucky the next morning. I canceled a follow-up gig that had been offered to me for later that month. I told them it was a scheduling conflict, but really I just didn't want to be back in that city or any city for a while. Kyle stopped going to Walmart altogether. Said he switched to online orders, couldn't walk past a row of fluorescent lights without hearing that pop again in his mind. As for me, something in me changed. I didn't tell many people what happened. Not out of shame, just I didn't want to relive it every time someone asked. But sometimes when I'm walking through a store late at night and someone reaches into their jacket too fast, my body locks up before my brain can process anything. I know it's irrational. I know lightning rarely strikes the same place twice. But the truth is, when violence finds you in a place you thought was safe, when it breaks that invisible barrier of the ordinary, you never see anything the same again. Now every aisle looks longer. Every stranger seems louder. Every door feels a little thinner than it did before. And when someone asks if I want to make a Walmart run after dark, my answer is always the same. Let's wait till morning. Tragedy doesn't always knock. Sometimes it slips through the sliding doors of the places we think are harmless. Grocery aisles, parking lots, frozen food sections. It reminds us that no place is too mundane to turn dangerous and no routine is too ordinary to be disrupted. The lesson: never take comfort zones for granted and never mistake familiarity for safety. It's strange how a night meant for errands can end up changing the way you feel about the world. Before last March, I used to think late-night store runs were harmless, boring even. But that was before I realized how quietly danger can dress itself up in normalcy. When Lena called me that week asking if I could help her move into her new apartment in Hudson, Florida, I said yes without hesitation. We'd been roommates in college, 2 psychology majors who never quite grew out of our bad habits. Midnight fast food, horror marathons, wandering grocery store aisles like they were haunted houses. I was between jobs then, doing freelance editing and trying to piece together what the next chapter of life looked like. Helping a friend unpack boxes felt like a nice distraction from all that uncertainty. Lena's new place was tucked between a gas station and a strip mall, the kind of cookie-cutter complex where every apartment looked the same and every hallway smelled faintly of new carpet and paint thinner. We'd been working all day tossing old pans, trying to find where the box-labeled towels had vanished to, and eating cold pizza on the floor. By the time it hit 11:30 p.m., we realized we didn't have essentials. No toilet paper, no food, not even a working light bulb in the bathroom. That's how the decision happened. It wasn't brave, it wasn't reckless, it was just routine. "Walmart run?" Lena asked, tossing her keys in the air. "Let's make it quick," I said. "I've got sleep to catch up on." The store sat along US 19, a glowing giant of a building that looked like it hadn't closed its eyes in a decade. The parking lot was half empty, washed in harsh yellow light, the kind that makes everything look a little too still. A minivan idled near the entrance, its headlights off. Something about the air felt strange. Quiet in the wrong way, like the pause before a siren. Lena joked, "Why do Walmarts always feel like they survived the apocalypse after 10 p.m.? We both laughed, but something in me didn't. That night I would learn that sometimes it's not paranoia. Sometimes the feeling is right. And sometimes there really is someone watching you from across the aisle. Inside the Walmart, the world felt muted. There was that low hum of refrigeration units and the occasional squeak of old cartwheels, but not much else. An older woman in flannel pajama pants browsed near the pharmacy, and a stock boy with a limp pushed a cart down a cleaning aisle without looking up. We grabbed paper towels first, then a pack of energy drinks, and Lena added some light bulbs to the mix. It was a normal trip filled with casual banter and bad jokes. We were halfway through the snack aisle when I noticed them. 3 men in hoodies, all dark clothes, no carts, just standing in the electronics section like they were waiting for a show to start. One of them had a hand buried in his pocket. Another had his hood up so tight I could barely see his face. At first it was just a chill, the kind you get when your brain registers something before your mouth can form the words. They weren't browsing. They weren't comparing TVS. They were just watching. Lena leaned in, voice low but steady. "Don't look now, but one of them is following us." My stomach knotted. I turned just enough to catch a glimpse of him. Tall, maybe early 30s, pretending to study a row of granola bars just a few feet behind us. Except he wasn't reading any labels. His eyes were fixed. We moved aisles. He moved too. Lena stopped, looked at me. "Nope, we're not doing this tonight." We made our way toward the checkout lanes, not running but definitely walking with purpose now. As we moved, I realized the other 2 men had positioned themselves nearby again, this time near the coolers. I could feel their eyes on our backs, tracking our movement. I reached for my phone but didn't unlock it. I just held it. It made me feel like I had a plan. When we passed the frozen section, I noticed something that turned the unease into full-blown alarm. Outside, near the emergency exit, a 4th man stood by the door, just standing there, phone to his ear. His stance was too still, his attention too focused. And when I looked back toward the others, I realized they were all moving in a pattern, loose, spaced out, but coordinated. "They're not just being creepy," I said quietly. "They're working together." Lena didn't argue. We made a sharp turn down the nearest aisle, hoping to disappear behind the tall shelves of paper goods. That's when we saw him, a Walmart employee, maybe 19, a little wide-eyed with a walkie-talkie clipped to his vest. I didn't hesitate. "Hey," I said, stepping closer, trying to keep my voice even. "I think we're being followed. Can you walk us to the front?" He looked at me, then at Lena, then toward the back of the aisle. Without a word, he clicked something on his radio, nodded, and started walking. Following that employee felt like walking the edge of a storm. The air was too quiet. My breathing was shallow. Lena stayed close beside me, unusually. Quiet now, her hand tight on the shopping cart's handle. I could feel our footsteps echoing too loudly. As we turned into the main aisle near checkout, I dared a glance over my shoulder. The three men had stopped walking. They weren't pretending anymore. Two of them were by the soda displays, standing completely still. One of them, the one who had followed us, had a smirk on his face. That expression stuck with me. It wasn't frustration or panic, it was confidence. A look that said this wasn't the first time, that they'd done this before. We scanned items without thinking, hands shaking as we tapped the touchscreen. A bag of ramen, toilet paper, light bulbs. None of it mattered anymore. We just needed to leave. The employee stood close, not saying much, but his presence was everything. It told them we weren't alone. When we got outside, the parking lot looked deceptively peaceful again. The same flickering lights, the same idling minivan near the entrance. But now, every shadow felt threatening. Every parked car looked like it might start moving toward us. The employee walked us to Lena's car, waited until we were inside, and gave a small wave before heading back in. We didn't speak until we were 3 blocks down US 19, headlights blazing down the empty road. "They were going to grab us," Lena finally said. I didn't argue, because I believed her. The next morning, I couldn't shake it. I called the Walmart location, not 911, just the store, hoping maybe someone would confirm it was all in our heads, that we'd overreacted, that it had just been weird dudes standing too close. But the shift manager I spoke with didn't dismiss anything. "Those same guys have been spotted a couple of times this week," he said. "Never buying anything, just loitering near the exits." He paused, then added something that made my throat close. "You were the third set of women they tailed this week." There it was, the confirmation, the worst kind. Lena stopped going out at night after that. She started ordering everything, groceries, takeout, even toothpaste. I didn't blame her. As for me, I still shop in person, but not after dark, not alone. I don't wear earbuds in stores anymore. I walk fast. I keep my keys between my fingers. And I always check behind me before turning a corner. Because sometimes you're not just running errands. Sometimes someone's running a plan. A few months later, I found myself in another store back in Gainesville. Middle of the afternoon, well lit, full of people. I caught a guy standing near the makeup aisle, hands in his pockets, just watching a woman browse. He wasn't doing anything, but something in his posture made me stop and wait. And sure enough, when she walked away, he followed. I stepped into the space between them, just far enough for him to notice, just long enough to break his pace. He turned, walked the other direction. Nothing happened. Nothing needed to. I don't tell this story for drama. I tell it because the world is changing. Because quiet danger often hides behind normal things. Aisles of cereal, freezers full of ice cream, glowing exit signs, and because sometimes paying attention is the only thing standing between you and a nightmare you'll never get to wake up from. That night at Walmart didn't end in headlines. No abduction, no arrests. Just a narrow escape. But that's the thing about bad intentions. Sometimes they don't need to succeed to do permanent damage. Just the attempt is enough to leave you changed. Now I move through the world with open eyes, because I've learned that not everyone in the aisle is shopping. Some people are hunting. Always trust your instincts. Safety doesn't come from where you are. It comes from what you notice and how quickly you act. Because sometimes survival is just one aisle away from disaster.